What's up, Node.js developers? Welcome back to a new live stream. I'm super excited for today's build because we are starting a new application. And what can be more exciting than that? So today we are going to build the Nike application with React Native and Redux. This application is pretty fun to build because it has a lot of interesting features, even though it has a minimalistic UI. But instead of talking a lot, let's actually see a short demo of application that you are going to build by the end of this stream. So here on the main page, we're going to start by displaying a nice list of products, and we can scroll through them, we can see them. They're displayed in two columns. From here, what we can do is we can go to the details page of this product, and on this page we will see more information about the sneakers, for example. And what's cool about this page is the nice image carousel that we see here on the top, and we can scroll through the images and see more details. From this page, we also have the add to cart button, and we can press on it, and then this automatically adds that product to the cart, and we can access the cart from the top menu by going here, and we see all the items that we have added to the cart. At the bottom, we will see the calculations like total, subtotal, and so on. And yeah, as you can see, like the user interface is quite minimalistic, and I really love it because it's easy to get started. But by the end of this build, we're gonna get into some interesting features, into more advanced features like navigation and also global state management using Redux and Redux Toolkit. So I'm pretty sure that there is something to learn for everyone, and you're gonna enjoy this project together with me. If you're new to this channel, first of all, welcome here. My name is Vadim. I'm a full stack developer, and I have experience working in a lot of companies, including Amazon, founding my own software development agency. But at the moment, I decided to focus full-time on helping developers all over the world, here for free on YouTube, and also with our premium academy at academy.notjust.dev. If you enjoy what we're doing here, make sure to subscribe to the channel because that will help us a lot in reaching more developers and helping even more people from our community. With that being said, I think if you're ready, I am also ready, and we can actually get started with today's build because we have a lot of things to cover today. I'm always setting the scope of a project higher and higher for every project, and hopefully we will manage in time and you will learn a lot today. So, hello everyone in the live chat. How are you doing, guys? You cannot download the asset bundle. Yes, before that, before we get started, make sure to download the asset bundle by going to assets.notjust.dev/Nike. And that asset bundle contains some dummy data, some pre-made components, and other important information and files that we will need throughout this build to move on even easier for you. So you will not focus on writing dummy data, but on actually building and learning how to create mobile applications with React Native. Did you get a haircut? I don't know, I cannot say that this is a haircut, but yes, I've got a haircut thanks to my girlfriend Alex. Not girlfriend, fiancé. Sorry. All right. Also, besides the asset bundle, I have prepared for you a step-by-step guide, and you can find the step-by-step guide by going to the link that you can find in the description. I'm going to open it right now, so just for you to see how it will look. And this step-by-step guide actually contains even code snippets that will help you follow along together with me here. So that's how it should look. Come on. So yeah, I prepare here like everything step by step. So if something is not working, just make sure you can come here, check if you copied it correctly. I included code snippets for everything that we're gonna do. So it's a pretty extensive guide to help you move along and build this application yourself. So I'm doing my best to make sure that everyone, no matter your experience, can follow this tutorial. And even if you're a beginner, you're going to be able to build this application by the end. And also, if you have already some experience with React Native, you're going to be able to learn something new today because we will cover some advanced topics. All right, so I think we are more or less ready to get started. And if you follow, people are saying that they are not able to download it. Didn't you get the asset bundle on the email? Just follow the URL, put your name and email, and you should receive the asset bundle there. Everything should be working. Is anyone else who managed to download the asset bundle? Let me know in the comments, just to make sure that it is working, or otherwise I'm gonna look into it shortly. But if you follow the step-by-step guide, the first step that we have to do is let's go ahead and initialize an empty Expo application. So for that, I'm gonna open a new terminal. Let me zoom in so everyone can see properly. Let's go to projects and YouTube, not Academy, and here we have a Nike. All right, so here I'm gonna clear. Once you are in a folder where you want to initialize the project, go ahead and run npx create expo app, and then give the name of the application, for example, Nike app. So you don't have to have Expo. Okay, the Nike app is already installed. Okay, Nike app clone for me, that's gonna be. You don't have to have Expo CLI installed globally anymore. You can easily use npx, and then using the create expo application, this will download the latest version of a CLI for the Expo and will initialize it with for your project. So the only thing that you have, you need to have from the environment perspective is Node. By having Node, you're going to have npm and npx. That's going to help you run the application, initialize it. And also, you're going to need a code editor. And in my case, that's going to be Visual Studio Code, in where we will work to build the application. But any other code editor will work. Okay, I see the download works. So, Haro, let me. I'm gonna try to help you after the build. Write me an email, and I'm gonna send you manually the asset bundle. If you still do not get the email, maybe check the promotion or spam folder to find it there. All right, so now we see that our project is ready. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and open the project with code by running code. Let me actually clear everything. And I'm gonna do code Nike app clone. This will open the application in Visual Studio Code. If you don't have this shortcut code, just open up manually code, and from here go to File, Open Folder, and search for your folder. From Visual Studio Code, I'm going to open a terminal from New Terminal here on the top. Yes, I hope you can see it. And I'm going to run the development server. So let's go ahead and do npm start. That will start our Metro bundler, from where we can run our application on either a physical device or on an emulator. In my case, I'm gonna press I to open this application on an iOS simulator. If you're working on a Windows or a Linux machine and you have already Android set up, you have an emulator, you can press A to open it on Android emulator. Or alternatively, and the easiest way without having to set up Android Studio or Xcode is by simply downloading the Expo Go application on your physical device. It's available both for Android and iOS. And after that, go ahead and scan this QR code and the application will run directly on your physical device, on your phone. So that's the easiest way you can do it. You don't have to go through the struggles of installing and setting up Android Studio, for example. But yeah, for me, I'm gonna go ahead, bring my emulator here. Come on, something like this should be fine. Come on. Yeah. And yeah, let's press I again to open it on this iPhone. Okay, so here we have our brand new application running successfully on our device. So if we open the files in the Explorer here, the entry point, the first file that our application is going to run is the app.js. So if we open it up here, we're going to see this text that we actually see on the device. So if you're going to change it to hello world, that should automatically refresh on the device, and now you know that everything is connected and set up for you, and we are ready to get started with our application. Actually, I will take one small extra step in order to get rid of the red squiggly lines for Visual Studio Code. You don't have to do that. Your application will still work. I just want this to look a bit better. So I'm going to go ahead here on the bottom, press on configure.js config. That will create a file in my in the root directory here, and I'm gonna change from React to React.jsx. And if I save now the file, go back, yes, my red squiggly lines that we're complaining about not importing React went away. But again, that was optional, just to get rid of them. Okay, perfect. So the first step for our build is rendering our home screen UI. So if we look at the Nike's application, the home screen is pretty simple. It displays a list of products. They're displayed in a grid view where we have two columns, and you might already think how we can do everything from the beginning, like how we can put like two columns and then images and then a flat list, scrollable, and so on. What I like to do is I like to break down the UI into the smallest and simplest component that we can possibly think of. And in this case, one of these atomic components on this page that I can see is an item that displays one product. So for example, yeah, like we have these Nikes that are displaying this product that is displaying these Nikes, and so on. Like on this page, we have 6 of them. All right, let's go ahead and start rendering it from there, building the application from there. And if we look at the UI, like that item is not more than a simple image. So let's go ahead and in our app.js, let's start rendering that image. To render an image, we need to import the image component from React Native. And here, instead of the text hello world, I'm going to go ahead and render the image. For the image in the guide, there you can find the URI. So I copied it from there. And let's go ahead and provide the source. The source will specify what image we want to render. So if we send here an object with a URI, we can specify a remote image by providing the URL to a publicly available image. I have prepared this for you, so You don't have to find any images, just look into the guide and copy this URL from there. Well, with only rendering this URI, nothing will show up on the screen just because we still have to provide styles. We need to say how big we want this image to render. Without them, it's just going to be empty because the sizes will be initialized with 0. So let's provide another property to the image component called style and go ahead and display the width, for example, 100 and height 100. We should already see something on the screen. We see this image there. Well, instead of rendering width 100, which is hard-coded values in pixels, and it will look different on different screens. On smaller screens, this image will look relatively larger, and on large screens, for example, on an iPad, this image will be really, really small. So what I actually want to do is to render them with relative width. For example, I want to render them full width, 100%. So if I do 100%, the width of the image now is 100% of the width of the screen, of the width of a parent component, which is our container here. Now the height remains 100%, and what we actually want to do is to render it as a square. So the height should be equal to the width. How we can do that? We can simply do that by providing the aspect ratio of 1/1, or simply 1, and that will render it as a square. And the height will be calculated based on the width and the aspect ratio. Okay, perfect. So now we define these styles, but instead of, at the moment, we have styled this image inline. So basically we wrote the styles inside our JSX. A better way is to extract our styles in the styles object here at the bottom. So we can specify image is equal to the styles that we have defined. And from our JSX here, we simply access them by calling styles.image. And we are back here, we see the styles for the image. This will help us keep like the code that is responsible for the structure, which is our JSX here, like how things should be structured, from the code that is responsible for the styling, how things should look on the screen. Perfect, so we have this image here. The next step will be to render a list of images, not only one, right? Because on the home screen we saw that we are rendering multiple items. Okay, so to render multiple items, we first of all need some data. The data, I have prepared it for you. So before importing it, let's go ahead and create a folder inside our project called src that will keep all our source code. This is a standard, so we keep all the code that we are writing in the src. And here we can go ahead and create another folder called data. In this data folder, we're going to put all the dummy data that we will need. From the asset bundle that you have downloaded, here is the asset bundle. Let me do it like this. Open up the code directory, and there is this data folder. I have products.js and cart.js, which are the data that we need for our application to help us move faster. So I move them inside the data folder. If I open cart, for example, if I open products, this is an array of actual products. It contains a lot of data, but what we are interested in at the moment is that every product contains this image property, and this is actually what we need on the homepage, the image property of our products. Perfect. Back in our app.js, let's go ahead and import our products from source data products. Now, the component that we're gonna use to render these products is called a flat list. And a flat list helps us render lists of data in a performant way. So let's go ahead and add some spaces here before our image and start rendering our flat list. The flat list will be a self-closing tag because we don't need any children in it. We will define everything inside the properties. And there are actually two required properties for a flat list to work. One of these property is the data. Basically, what data do you want me to render? And in our case, we said that we want to render the products, the array of products. And the second required property for the flat list is how do you want me to render one item in this array? So that property is called render item. Let's do it like this. I'm gonna probably put them from new lines to make sure that you don't make mistakes with the syntax. So render item property expects a function that will be called for every item inside the products array. And what we have to do is we have to return some JSX. We have to basically say how we want to render that product. So with that being said, let's actually implement it. Okay, render item expects a function. Let's define the function. The function will receive some parameters, and that parameter is an object from where we can get the item that we want to render at the moment. This item will be one product from this array, for example, this one. And it contains the image that we want to render. What we want to do with this item, we want to render this image for every single product, like this. And instead of hard coding the URI, because right now it renders a lot of products, but all of them are the same image, because we are hard coding it. What we want to do is, I want to specify that the image URI is going to be item.image. Basically take the image property of our item. And just by doing that, we already have something. Let me try to put it into one line because I think it should fit without problems. Yeah, now it looks much better. Flat list, render item, and for every item we are rendering one image component. And here on the right we can see a beautiful list of scrollable items. Perfect, but the problem is that we wanted to display them into columns, right? Okay. Well, to do that, first of all, we need to make sure that the component that we are rendering is going to take half of a screen. At the moment, our image is taking actually the full width, but we want it to take half of a screen, right? Because we want to fit two items inside there. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap our image inside a container, and that container is going to be a simple view. I'm gonna do it like this. View, and yeah. So we are rendering for every item one container, and inside that container the image. All right, so let's give some styles to this view, and I think I'm gonna do styles.item container, and we can go ahead and define it there. What's the problem? Oh, I think, yeah, I had there an extra character on the screen, and now it should be better. Yes. Let's go ahead and define the styles for this item.container in our styles. And as I said, I want the item container to be half of the screen to allow two items to be on the same row. So I'm gonna do 50%. And I'm also gonna specify some padding in order to have a little bit of spacing between these items. So padding 1 should be fine. Okay, at the moment, it doesn't look very good, but we need one extra property on the flat list to make this work. And that property is the number of columns. And if we specify that we want to render them in 2 columns, we're gonna receive an error, but go ahead and press R to refresh the application. And now what we see is we see actually our list displayed beautifully in two columns with items displayed inside. Perfect. The last step that we should do here, because we are almost done with the home screen, it's pretty simple, but in the next screen with the details, we're gonna go into more details on working with text, with rendering carousel images, and so on. But for now, it was pretty simple. I hope you managed to follow along so far. What we learned so far is how to render images. So to render a remote image, we need to provide the source with a URI, and for the URI we need a public URI to an image. Without styling the image, we're not gonna see it on the screen, so make sure to give a width and a height property to them through styles. And then we also saw how we can work with flat lists to render lists of data, scrollable list of data. What I want to do now is I want to extract this logic into its separate component, because this logic is our product screen. And we're gonna extract it into a separate component in order for us later to easier switch and move between different screens. So inside the source directory, let's go ahead and create a new folder called screens. And inside these screens, I'm gonna go ahead and create a file called product_screen.js. Okay, so let's see what makes a React Native component. A React Native component is a simple function. So let's go ahead and start with defining the function. Product screen. We define the function with an arrow style. And what makes a JavaScript function to be a React component is the fact that it should return some JSX. The JSX is the syntax that we saw here, and that's how we define our components. And in our case, the product screen is going to be our flat list. So go ahead in app.js, copy the flat list from here, put it inside the return statement here, and we should also make sure to import some of the things. For example, flat list, view, image, and product. I'm going to be lazy here, and I'm gonna go to app.js, and I'm gonna copy all of the imports from here into our product screen. I'm gonna remove the status bar because we don't need it here. And another thing that we need to move from app.js is the styles. So let's take the styles and leave them here. Don't cut them from app.js because we still need some styles in app.js, but let's duplicate them in the product screen at the bottom. So what do we need? We need item container and image, but we don't need the container here. So I can safely delete that style. We need to fix the way we are importing products because the relative path is different. So instead of going to source, I actually have to do double dots to get outside of a screens directory and then go inside the data directory. Last thing that we need to do here is to export product screens. So at the bottom of the file, let's do export default product screen. Okay, we don't see anything on the right side because in app.js, we are not rendering anything. Let's go ahead and import our newly created product screen from source screen product screen. And inside our view here, we can go ahead and render product screen. If we do that, we are back to normal. We're back to our list of items, but now we have our custom screen that is rendering them. And from app.js, we simply access that screen. And in the next step, it's going to be easier for us to move between screens. And by the end of the video, we are also going to implement navigation to do all of this navigation automatically. I want to also clean up a bit from the app.js because we do not need the products anymore. We do not need the flat list. We do not need the image at the moment. And probably the text as well. Maybe if we'll need later, I'm gonna import them. And from the styles in app.js, we do not need the style for the image and for the item container because they are about the product screen. Okay, so with that being said, I think we are done with the homepage that is rendering the product screen. The next step is going to be a bit more interesting, and we are going to go ahead and render the product details page. Before we do that, I want to check the live comments to see how people are following along. And I see already someone joining the Node.js developer and supporting us on YouTube. Thank you very much for your support. I really appreciate that. All right. Let me see, read some comments or questions. Will you use AWS, please? I haven't planned this yet. I haven't planned if we're gonna continue this with backend side. Actually, the goal of this tutorial was to teach you how to use Redux and to have an introduction to Redux. But I wanted to do it in a fun way, not simply like, hey, here is how you can press a button, change a state in global state, and so on. I want things to be exciting for you. I hope you enjoy this project-based methodology that I'm using. And by the end, it's a fully blown application with e-commerce features. So maybe we're gonna continue it. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to continue this project with maybe implementing the backend side and also potentially the monetization, how to integrate the payments here. Or maybe some animations or something else that you are interested. Like why you decide, guys. Unable to boot device. Do I have to install iOS emulator? Yes, in order to run the application on your on an emulator the way I'm doing here, you actually need to install Xcode, and to install the by installing Xcode, you're gonna get access to the iOS emulators. If you haven't done that yet, the easiest way without going through a lot of struggles is go in the App Store if you have iOS, or Play Store on Android, and simply download Expo Go. If you do that, you can then scan this QR code by pressing C here. You're gonna see the QR code, scan it. I can actually do it right now, and it actually takes like 2 seconds. Like you scan it, you see open in Xcode, and then it will load right away here on your device. So just one application on your phone and you're ready to go. I'm gonna add the presentation PDF inside the Ascent bundle. However, I've focused mostly on the step-by-step guide that you can get in the description. I hope that's clear. And that step-by-step guide actually explains and shows all of these steps in details that we are doing here, with also code snippets. So that's the focus now. Do you provide the source code on GitHub? Yes, we're gonna provide the source code after this project is complete. At the end, like after this tutorial. Continue would be nice. Please do. Please continue. Awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm happy that you enjoy it. And Moon is saying, hey, Vadim, cheers from Marrakesh. Hello. How are you doing there? Please do backend and payments. Is it a good practice to list items? What do you mean by that? Dacă faci backend și monetizare, rup YouTube-ul. Hello, Alex. I understood that. Please do backend payments and streaming video. Streaming video for this application probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but yeah, we have a lot of plans. Like this year is going to be filled with content, with projects, so make sure to subscribe to the channel, guys. I'm gonna go through 2 more comments and then we can continue with our product details screen. Respect from Pakistan. Hello. All right, guys. So let's move on with that project and we're going to go to the next step. Before that, I'm going to quickly do a commit just for us to have a checkpoint in time. So this was our product screen. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna close everything except our app.js. I can close even the app.js. All right, so now, as I said, we will start working on our, let me do it like this. Let me zoom in. You have this guide in the link in the description. I'll repeat that, just to make sure that everyone knows where to find it. So moving on to the product details screen, this page has a little bit more content. So we're gonna find out how to work also with texts, how to render carousel images, how to work with icons, buttons, how to make them be displayed always on the screen with absolute position, and a lot of other small little tricks to render beautiful user interfaces. So yeah, I think we're gonna start from the top and we're gonna render the carousel. But yeah, let's go ahead and copy the starter code for our component just to have it to have it easier to get started for us. It just contains some comments. I'm going to put it. So in our screens directory, let's go ahead and create a new file for our product details screen.js. In this file, as I said, from the guide, I have copied the starter code. Oh my God, it's so hard for me to to follow everything. Yeah, so from the guide, let's copy the starter code. Here it is. And what it does, it defines the component that we already know how to do. It takes the first product from our array of products. So at the moment, it's a dummy product that takes it from the dummy data. And it renders a simple view and it's ready for us to implement all the components from that page. We also have a styles and we exported the component so it can be imported from the other pages. We have to actually import it in our app.js because at the moment we are rendering the product screen, but we already moved to product details screen. So let's go ahead and import it in app.js and replace the product screen here. I'm gonna comment it out and instead I'm gonna render the product details screen. All right, so at the moment it's a blank screen without anything there, but slowly we're gonna put things and we're gonna render them here. So let's go ahead and start from the top and we're gonna start with the image carousel. For the image carousel, again, start small. Start with the things that you already know, because maybe at this point you don't know how to render an image carousel, but you know how to render an image because we already did that in the first component. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's import the image from React Native and render it here. Image, we need to provide a source, and the source needs the URI. The URI, we're gonna take it from the product.image. And for the style, we need to provide some styles there. For example, a width. We want it to be full width of a screen, so it's going to be 100%, and the aspect ratio of 1. Just by doing that, everything that we are doing here, we already know how to do, and we can look back into the code that we have wrote before, and we see the image here on the screen. The problem is that it is in the middle, it's in the center. I'm not sure if we exactly want that, and what we can do is we can open back app.js, and we see that our screen is inside this container, and the container, if we look into the styles, it has some styles to align everything in the center. I'm going to actually delete this because we want the page to flow from the top to bottom. So make sure to do that, and we can go back to our product detail screen. Okay, so we know how to render an image. The next step is, okay, how we can render a carousel? Well, it's much easier than we thought because we can leverage the power of a flat list, and we worked with a flat list in the previous component to render a list of data. In this case, our data is an array of images, and for every single image, we need to render the image component. Yes, it's different position, it's something else, but with the power of flat list, we can send some properties to adjust the way we want it to look. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's try it out. So let's import the flat list first from React Native. And for the image carousel, let's go ahead and render flat list as a self-closing tag. We remember that it needs two properties. It needs data and it needs a render item. Render item. For the data, we need to provide an array. The array, which array? If we look into the data products.js, every product also, besides the image, also contains an array of images. So let's go ahead and access this array of images in our product details screen. We have a product and we want to access product.images. If we look into that images, every item in this array is a string that represents the URL to that image. So now, knowing that information, we know what item we will receive in the render item. It's going to be a URL to an image. And what we want to do with that URL to an image is to render the image component, like this. Again, it will render the same item because if we look at the source here, we are rendering the product image, the thumbnail of the product. What we want to do is to change this to the item that we're going to get from the render item. Perfect. We see different images. However, they are rendered vertically, right? We actually wanted to render them in a horizontally scrollable list. Well, with flat list, that's possible. We simply provide horizontal here, and that should work. But you might see that, okay, everything disappeared. And why? Well, why it disappeared is we moved our flat list to be horizontal. What does that mean? It means that the flat list itself, the container that displays the flat list, is going to be infinitely wide. Not actually infinitely wide. It's going to grow in width as more items are displayed on the screen. Now, if we look at the items that we are displaying, for example, the image, we said that the width should be 100% of its parent. So we have a cycle dependency. The image depends on the width of the flat list, and the flat list depends on the width of the image. If we change this from relative to, for example, 100, everything is going to be displayed there. You can do it even 300 here. So now we see that it actually works. The problem was with relative width. But yeah, we actually wanted to display them full width of the screen. Okay, there is another way we can display images and items full width of a screen whenever we are not able to use like the relative width. In that case, we will actually take the size of a screen and we will send it to the width here. To take the size of a screen, we can import a hook called use window dimensions from React Native. Now, using this hook inside our component at the top here, we can take the width of a screen using use window dimension. This will return us the width of our phone screen or of our device, basically. So we can take this width and send it to the style. And in this case, the width of our image is going to be the same as the width of our screen. So we are back to what we had before. And because they have the same name, we can simplify this by just saying width, like this. Okay, perfect. But what else? Maybe you don't like the scrollable indicator at the bottom that shows there. That's perfectly fine, and we can get rid of it by using a simple property called shows horizontal scroll indicator, and we say false. We don't want to show that. Now it's more clean. It doesn't show it. The last step to make this scrollable thing look like a image carousel is to use the paging enabled property on the flat list. And by doing that, whenever we scroll, it will make sure to center the closest image. And now we can smoothly scroll through them. And flat list will automatically align the closest image in the center. So without this, as you saw, like we can be in this situation, which is not actually what you're looking for. With paging enabled, you have this nice UX where the image is centered. And yeah, that's how we can render an image carousel using a flat list and 3 additional properties. Horizontal to make it horizontally, paging enabled to make it center the closest image when we release the finger from the screen, and also like hiding the scroll indicator to make it look more clean. All right, perfect. Now let's move on to the next part, which are our texts. So we need to display the title, we need to display price and the description. So for that, let's go ahead and use a text component, and we're gonna render here product.name. Do we have a name? Yes, product.name. We need to make sure to import the text component from React Native, text, like this. So we're rendering the product.name. We need to also style this. So I'm gonna give styles.title. And let's go ahead and copy this for the price. But we have to change product.price here. The styles will also be price. And let's do it one more time for our description. Product.description. Description. And for the styles, description. Okay, so we see all our text nicely displayed here. But yeah, like we still need to work a bit on their styles. But yeah, before we actually style the titles, I want to add some spacing for around this box, because at the moment all the text goes from the left side to the right side of the screen and they look really cramped. I can do that individually for the title, price, and description, but I'm gonna have to repeat myself over and over again with the same property. So instead of that, I would rather encapsulate all of these text into a view I'm gonna close this view here after the description. And for the style of this view, I can simply say padding 20, and this will add this nice padding around all our components. Perfect. Look, for the styles of our title, price, and description, I'm gonna go ahead and take them from the guide that you can also do. I have those styles here, so we don't have to waste a lot of time. I can explain what we do. With the font size, we basically control how big we want the font to be. So for the title, we have a 34, and for the others, we have a smaller font. With the font weight, we can specify how, if we want the font to be bold, for example, or you can also use values from 100, which is very thin, 200, and so on, all the way till 900, I think. So I'm gonna use a 500, which is a little bit less bold than a bold, but yeah, it looks nice here. What else? Margin vertical adds a bit of margin between the title and the price. And another thing is here line height, which adds more spacing between the lines in the text. So without this, check out the description. I'm gonna uncomment this, and now the text looks more cramped and it's harder to read. And where we have a lot of text, I usually like to increase a bit the line height. You can do it like, you can see it obviously if you do 50, for example, the spacing between the lines are really big. But 30 should look good there. For the price, I actually have to render how's it called? The dollar sign before rendering the price there. So I'm gonna do dollar sign. Yeah, something like that. Besides line height, you can also play with letter spacing. So for the price, if you do letter spacing, I don't know, 20, you can see how wide is the space between the digits. I'm not sure why I wanted to adjust the letter spacing there, but yeah, we can probably do something like 5 there, or even 2. Is it very, yeah, I think it looks better. 1.5, yeah, should be good like this. Now we introduced another problem. Whenever we have a lot of content on the screen, in this case we have a lot of text in the description. This content goes off the screen and there is no way we can look and see what's below. We cannot scroll at the moment. When this happens, what we have to do is we have to encapsulate our content inside the scroll view, and that content will become scrollable. The scroll view can be imported from React Native, and the content that we want to put in the scroll view is basically starting from the flat list, including the flat list. I'm going to copy the ending of the scroll view and I'm going to put it just after this view, but before the comment add cart button, because add cart button, this is going to be a button outside the scroll view. So if I do it like this, now all the components inside this scroll view, they become scrollable and we can scroll and see all the content in this page. It's important to think what components you want to put in the scroll view, because if you leave out the flat list from the scroll view and start it from here, then the flat list will always remain on the top and only this part will be scrollable, and it will look something like this. In this case, it will probably need a style. Yeah, not sure why it's not working. Like, it needs some styles like content container style, I think, flex 1. Well, it doesn't matter, but you see the idea that I wanted to say. Whenever you leave out some components, they will always be visible on the screen, and the other content inside will be scrollable, like this one. Maybe that's the interface that you are looking for, but for us, we want the images also to scroll up together with the text. And here, the carousel is still working. We can still scroll through it, and we can also scroll down to see the text. All right, so I see a lot of new people joining today. So guys, how are you doing? Today, to give a little update, we are building the Nike's e-commerce application, and we're going to do that with React Native, and shortly we're also going to implement a global state management using Redux. So if you're interested in mobile development, make sure to follow along. This video is going to be published on the channel, so you can bookmark it and watch it afterwards if you missed the beginning. But yeah, it's a step-by-step tutorial. We're going through all of these screens. It starts slowly in the beginning with simple UIs, but sooner we're getting into more advanced topics. So I'm pretty sure you're gonna learn a lot from this build. And if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That will help us a lot to reach more developers and help even more people from our community. So far, we're going strong. We're one hour in, and we have almost finished 2 screens. Shortly, we're gonna get into like navigation and shopping cart and managing the state, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. For now, on this page, what I also want to do is I want to show you. Aditya is here watching silently and following with you. Great. Are you? How is the pace? Are you managing to follow along? Everything good? Oliver, hello guys. Let me know in the chat how are you doing, guys? Where are you joining us from? But while you're writing in the chat, we can take a short break in probably 5 minutes. But for now, I want to show you how we can render buttons. So for the buttons, we have a primitive component called pressable. And this pressable component is very similar to a view, which means that it doesn't have basically any styles, any predefined styles. But what it allows us to do is to handle user press events, like on press, on long press, and so on. So we're going to use a pressable component to render our button. So the pressable is going to be the view, and inside that we want to render the text component that will say what? Add to cart. Well, at the moment, I'm not sure where we will see it. Probably nowhere. It should be like after that scroll view. But yeah, like don't worry, because we will apply some styles. Starting with pressable, we're going to apply the style dot button. And for the text, we're going to apply styles.button text. Let's go ahead and define these styles here at the in our styles. We have a button style, and we have the button text. So with a button, I'm gonna start with a position. In the application that we are cloning in the Nike application, the add to cart button is always visible on the screen. And I think that's a good user experience because that's the main call to action button that you want to render on a products page. And you want people to always be able to click that button. So to render a button always on the screen, we're gonna work with a position and apply a position absolute to the button. I already see it on the screen. Maybe you don't. It's there on the top. What I'm gonna do is let me do a background color red. That's the way you debug things, and you see it there at the top. Okay. The button is there, but we want to display it on the bottom. So we simply say we want it on the bottom. and how far from the bottom, because if we put 0, it's going to be right here at the bottom. We probably want it like 30 pixels from the bottom or something like that. Okay, perfect, that's already better. The width. At the moment, the button takes the width of our text. What we want to do is we want to take the probably 100% of the width of a screen, like this. Or maybe not 100, because we need some spacing around. So let's do 90. And that's gonna take a little bit less space than the whole screen, but it's gonna be aligned to the left. What we can do is, using the align self property, we will say that we want to align this item in the center. And that will put this button nicely in the center of the screen here. Perfect. Yeah, from the background color red, I think we can easily go to background color black. Now the text is not visible because the text is also black, so let's go ahead and change this to color white. Yes, I see the text there. To give it more space to this button, I'm gonna play with padding, and padding is the spacing inside the container. So if we say padding 20, this will add 20 pixels around the box of this button. So it looks like this now. To make the corners of this button round, we will use the border radius. And we will provide, like if you provide 10, like that's gonna make the border just a bit round. And if we go a little bit more, it's gonna make them fully round, the way we want it to be. And lastly, we want the text to be in the middle. So to align the text in the middle, we're gonna give justify content to the button center, and this will align all the items in the center, but this is vertical. So we need align items center, and this will horizontally align the add to cart button in the center. I think that's everything for the button. I also want to change a little bit for the style for the text to make this font a little bit more bold, like a 500, and to increase a bit the size. So font size 16, maybe that's gonna be enough. Yeah, I think that's good. So with that, we have this button always visible on the screen, and what we can do is we can press on this button. At the moment, nothing is happening, but let's actually see if we can handle these press events. So for that, I'm going to add here to the pressable the onPress event. And the onPress event expects a function that is going to be called every time the user presses on the button. So let's define a function add to cart, which we didn't define it yet, but we can do it here in the component const add to cart is equal to a function. And I'm gonna go ahead and use a console.warn add to cart just to see something on the screen, to see a user feedback. So now with this having in place, if I press on the add to cart, I see this nice warning that is only showing in development, so it's only here until we actually implement the logic that we're going to do in the video, by the end of this video. So now we see that we can handle properly the touch events on the button, and we can listen to these events and do our logic later on. All right. In the guide, I also showed you how you can work with icons. That's actually optional, so if you're interested, check it out. In the guide, you see how you can import icons, how you can search for icons, and how you can have a button with an icon there. If we will have time by then, maybe I'm gonna show you, but that's not the most important part of the tutorial, and I really want to make sure we manage to do the important part, which is coming up very soon. Now we are finished with our product details page. we can go ahead and do git add, and we can commit -m product details screen. Perfect. The next step is going to be our shopping cart UI, and we're gonna get into it shortly after we look through some live comments. So if you're still coding me, I will give you 2, 3, 4 minutes, maybe 5, if we have enough comments to look at. Hello from France. Hello, Oliver. How are you doing? Do a payment application tutorial. From Tunisia, Botswana, Sri Lanka. Okay, West Africa. Hello. Hello, Hero. Hello, I see you. Yes. So guys, how many of you are following along? Let's see. Or you're just watching it on the background? Vote in the poll. I just run it. Hello from a Cuban on Finland. Hello, Angel. Senegal. Hello. When we're changing image details, not changing. What do you mean by that? What exactly you're changing and... Whew, that's a fun project. Hey, Anmoon, thank you very much for the donation. Are the shows included with the source code? Shows? Which shows? What are you talking about? I don't know. Thank you very much for the support, Anmoon. I really appreciate that. Hello from Philippines. Hello. Yes, I see more than 60% of people are actually following along. That's awesome. We have one more screen on the UI side. This is the shopping cart screen. And then we're gonna do navigation. And then we get into the global state management. Thank you, Ruhaim. Will the cart get empty when we add items to the order screen while using AWS Amplify and cart? In this video, we're not going to implement the backend side. So in this video, we're going to manage everything on the front end, like adding products to the cart, changing quantities, deleting products from the cart, and all of this stuff. If we decide if there is enough request from you to see how to do the backend, and if we do that with the backend, like when we submit an order, yes, like we will delete the cart. But this is again, like it's one part of the whole functionality. Like we have a lot of interesting features there in the cart, like to add things, to change quantity, to calculate totals, and so on. Show must go on. Following along and everything is working. That's great. I'm super happy for you. Let's go. Are you using Node 18 or 16? To be honest, I have no idea. Probably 18. I think, yeah. I upgraded recently. So if I do Node version, it's 18 at the moment. But everything should be working on the 16th as well. The Nike shows. Nike shows. Are we doing some shows? Ah, shoes. I think you're talking about shoes. Oh yeah. All right. I wish. Maybe. You should have done with API. We can do the API later. I now want to focus on the on one topic, like building the UI and also managing the global state here. We have a lot of projects using APIs, definitely. Yeah. All right, guys. So I think we can move on with next features and our next screen, but we will have to render is going to be our shopping cart screen. So let's go ahead and start by defining the shopping cart as a new file in the screens. So let's create new file. How did they call it? Did they call it shopping cart? Shopping cart.js. And here let's go ahead and define the const shopping cart equal to empty component that will return. Let's simply return some text at the moment, shopping cart. We can import this text from React Native, and lastly we can export by default the shopping cart. Now with an empty component like this, let's open up app.js and let's import our newly defined screen, shopping cart, from source screen shopping cart. And here let's comment out the product detail screen. And let's render the shopping cart. The text will be there, visible on the top. If you know about this issue, there is a way to solve it with safe area views in order for our content not to go behind these unsafe areas like the notch and so on. However, I'm ignoring it on purpose for now because in a moment we're going to implement navigation and this issue will be solved automatically. So let's move to the shopping cart here. And what will a shopping cart display? A shopping cart will render a list of shopping cart items. These shopping cart items, I actually have prepared these components for you, just for us to move a little bit faster towards the goal of this tutorial. So let's go ahead and define in the source a new folder called components. And from the asset bundle, let's go ahead, like in the asset bundle, there is the code. In the code, there is components, and I have prepared this cart list item. Let's drag it in our components here. And we can have a look at what it renders. But I think we're gonna do that once we see something on the screen, so I can show you exactly what's what on the screen. Let's go to our shopping cart, and having a cart list item, and also in the data, we have some dummy data for the cart.js. This cart.js contains information about items that we have added to the cart. The structure of this item is as following. It contains the information about the product. It contains the quantity of that product, and it will potentially contain other things that we selected about the product. For example, what size did we select it? What color did we select it? And so on. So besides the product, it contains other configuration that we want to know about the product. So now that we know that we have dummy data, we have a component that will render one of these cart item. Let's go ahead and in shopping cart, import a flat list and put them together. So instead of this text, I'm going to render a flat list. And for the data, I'm gonna do cart, and this should automatically import the cart data from data cart. Oh, that looks so bad. Come on. You can do it. And yeah, render item. And for the render item, we're going to define this function that receives one item, and this item is one cart item from our dummy data here, like one of these objects. And using the cart list item that we can import here, cart list item, we're gonna render it cart list item, and let's send cart item equal to our item, and make sure to close this component as well. So I'm gonna stop for a bit so you can check the structure of this file. So we're rendering a flat list. We already saw how to work with flat list. For that, we need two pieces of information. The array of data that we want to render, which is coming from our dummy data. And if you want to look into it and see more details how it looks, you can find it in source data cart.js. Now, for every item in this array, what we are doing is we are calling this render item function. And for every item, we are rendering a cart list item. And we send this data as a property there. Now, if we go into the cart list item, we can see what I'm rendering here. So basically, yeah, like we are starting with an image on the left. And in the middle, we have basically a container. If I do it like this, you can see it easily. Like we have the image on the left and everything else on the right. Okay, let's go deeper inside the content container. And here we see, okay, we have the name on the top. We have a size that is coming from the property there. And in the footer, we have basically the quantity. We have two icons for plus and minus signs that we will use to increase and decrease the quantity. And lastly, we have a text for our item total. Basically, what's the price of this item multiplied by the quantity. Down below, I have like all the styles. So as you can see, like it's really repetitive. So that's why I'm giving this component through the asset bundle, so we can move on with the meat, with the content. So guys, let me know if this step worked for you, if you see the same thing that I'm seeing, because we will move on to the next part, because on this shopping cart page, we are not done yet. We still have to do to render some things. For example, at the bottom of these items, what we want to do is we want to render 3 lines of text. One for subtotal, then for the delivery fee, and then for the grand total. So to do that, to render something at the bottom, like after all the items in a flat list, we can send a property to the flat list called list header component. If we do that, we can render here, it should be a function that returns some JSX. So we can render a view, and inside this view, basically multiple rows, like 3 rows of text. For example, one of these row will contain, let's do it like this. It's going to be view. The first view is for our styles.content. totals container. It's gonna give us an error because we have not yet defined the styles and have not yet imported view. So let's go ahead and import view and style sheet from React Native. And now at the bottom, we also have to define the styles. So styles equal style sheet.create. And we need styles for the totals container. We'll see what styles we need there in a moment. But the view inside is our basically the row that will contain two text boxes. One of the text is the first one is the label subtotal, and the second one is the value. And the value will be, I know I can hard code it at the moment. I see the problem. I said list header component. What I actually meant is list footer component, because at the moment the items are displayed there in the header. So I'll replace header with footer. And yeah, like that's also good to know, because you saw how we can also render things on the top of a flat list. Okay, we see the label subtotal, we see the text there, but we're not displaying the same row because we need to provide the styles for this row, and the styles will simply be flex direction row. If we do that, they are displayed in the row, and to make sure that we put one text on the left and one text on the right, we will use the justify content and specify space between to put all the available space in that container in between the two components that we have here. So now subtotal is on the left and the value is on the right. Whew, all right, okay. For the totals container, I think what I needed it for is to add some padding like 20 to make sure that they look better. I think that should be good. Or yeah, like that should be good probably. Oh, no. Yeah, I want to add a little line on the top. So to have a visual separation between items and the totals. To do that, we can do it with borders. So for example, we can say we want the border color to be gray, for example, and the border top width of 1. And if we do that, we see the line there. And yeah, like I don't like that the line is starting actually from the sides. So instead of having padding 20 here, I'm gonna have margin 20. And now the line is starting from where I expect it to start. And besides this, I also want to add some padding on the top to add spacing between the line and the first text. Padding top 10 between the line and the text. And the color is a value Gainsborough, I think. It's a lighter gray. Perfect. For the text here, I think I also styled it with style.text. So let's do text here. Increase a bit the font size to 16 and do a color gray. Okay, that's good. And I'm gonna apply it to the value as well. And yeah, with the styles, I think that's good. Now let's go ahead and duplicate this row one more time for our delivery. So delivery, yeah, probably 10, like this. And lastly, we will duplicate it one more time for the total. Total 500, 420. But I want the total to be displayed with bold. So I'm gonna define a different style called text bold. And this text bold, I'm just gonna simply duplicate the text, change it to text bold, and also apply font weight 500, and I'm gonna font weight 500, and I'm gonna remove a color in order to make it black like this. And to add more spacing between the lines, we can do that by adding margin vertical to the row component, and 2 might be what we're looking for. All right, with that being said, our footer is ready. So we have our totals here displayed. And which view? Which view is... Yeah, so yeah, like it's a lot of things, but we have styled everything and render them in separate rows and so on. And yeah, finally, what I want to do is I want to render the checkout button, which will be quite similar to our, where is it? In the screens, in the product details screen. Our checkout button is going to be quite similar to the add to cart button, because it will also be displayed always on the top of the screen. So let's go ahead and copy this pressable from here, from product details screen in the shopping cart. And where will we put them? I think we will put it besides the flat list, not in the footer. So for that, where our flat list ends, which is here, we can put the pressable, but you will see everything became red. That's because in React, all the components should return one single child. And the thing is that now we are returning 2 childs, flat list and pressable. To fix this problem, we're gonna encapsulate them inside the empty component, which is called also fragment. And we're gonna close it here at the bottom, and that will solve this problem. Now we are returning one single component, this fragment, which contains 2 childs inside. Okay, that sounded, if you are not a programmer, containing 2 child inside, that sounds really bad. But it makes sense in programming. Let's go ahead and import pressable from React Native. Pressable we imported. For the onPress, I'm gonna actually remove it because we don't need it at the moment. For the text, that's gonna be checkout. Checkout. Lastly, let's go ahead and bring these styles for the button and button text from the product details screen. I'm gonna scroll down till I get the button and button text to the shopping cart. I'm gonna put it there. And just like that, we have our checkout button here. Perfect. Dax is saying that he has never seen rendering the list footer component inside. So at the moment we are rendering this component, the footer component, here inside. Basically we're defining like what to render in line with a flat list. Usually, yes, in order to keep everything more cleaner, we usually take this into a separate component, and I can show you how we can do that. At the top here, we can define const shopping cart totals, and this is going to be equal to this whole function. So if I copy it from here and put it into the shopping cart totals like this, now we can simply take the shopping cart totals and send it to the list footer component like this. And now the flat list is much cleaner. We see like data, render item, and okay, in the footer we are rendering the totals. And if we need to get into the details, like what are the totals and so on, we can look at this component here. One extra step is to extract it into a separate file, and in that case, like it's gonna be even better. But I'm gonna stop here. I just wanted to show that's also possible. Can you add swipe down to reload the card? We would be able to do that, but at this moment it doesn't make a lot of sense because there is nothing to reload. Everything is going to be in our global state management, like it's not remote data. It's not coming from an API. So yeah, but a flat list allows you to do that. So don't worry also about like the things that our components are behind the notch. In the next step, we implement the navigation and that will be fixed automatically. All right, so more or less our shopping cart user interface is finished. Yeah, actually, that's everything we need at this moment for the shopping cart. So let's go ahead and do git add, git commit -m shopping cart screen. And in the next step, we're going to put all the free screens that we have built so far together into a navigation system so that we can navigate from one to another. Let's see, before we continue, we can take a very small break to go through the live comments. Any advice for people who would like to start coding with less experience in React Native? I'd recommend going through some of the builds that we have on this channel because I'm always trying to make them accessible for all developers, no matter your experience. So the only thing that I expect you to know is basic programming and basic fundamentals about programming. And here I'm talking to know what's a variable, what's a function, what's an array, what's a loop, and so on. And experience with JavaScript is also required. I'm not explaining like how JavaScript works here, but everything that comes to React Native, to the rendering part, to even like some of the modern JavaScript features that we are using, like destructuring and so on, I'm explaining them everything in these videos, so a lot of beginners were able to follow along and complete these builds themselves. There is also the step-by-step guide that I'm providing with every build, and that will also help you move along and see what we have to do. Check out some of the beginner-friendly tutorials on the channel. There is the Tesla clone that a lot of people enjoyed. This one is actually quite easy to follow along. So far, it should be doable for everyone. Now we're gonna get into navigation and global state management. The complexity will increase a bit. I hope it's gonna be slowly, and I'm still gonna explain you what we are doing step by step. Aman, I'll try to get back to you on Instagram. It takes a bit more time. I'm really busy these days with preparing everything for YouTube and also working for our premium courses. We are recording new modules, we're improving it, so it's constant, a lot of work. And by the way, yeah, if you are at a point where you went for a couple of builds on this YouTube channel and you're taking value and you want to advance to the next level as a React Native developer, then check out the premium course that I have prepared and that we already have a lot of students there. More than 400 or even 500 students are currently enrolled and are going through the course. In that course, I'm taking you from basically beginner and all the way until you know how to build full stack end-to-end applications with React Native and AWS Amplify. The link you can find in the description below. Check it out. It's really in-depth, and finishing it like you have a model, a mental model on how to build end-to-end mobile applications. Abhishek is saying, you helped me land my first React Native developer job. Oh my God, that's so awesome. Like, this is the success stories that makes me happy and that makes me continue doing all of this here on YouTube. Where can I get the source code? The source code is going to be available in the description. I'm going to post it on GitHub, but first I have to finish it. Like, we're still live. After the live is finished, I'm going to put it there. How to have those connecting lines you have on the brackets. That is, yeah, like ligaments. You're talking about, yeah, like the arrow functions, right? Check out the VS Code, top VS Code extensions video that I have on the channel, and where I explain how you can add this font that automatically transforms the arrow functions. All right, we have a lot of comments. So. See, people want to see the backend as well. I'm getting lost a bit in the comments. Give me a second. Would it be better to have a button as a component? Definitely. I like how you think already. Every time you copy paste things in your code, and that's always true, you should think how you can make this abstract, how you can make it more reusable. So yes, it would be better to make this button a reusable component because we already used it in 2 places. If you know how to do that, that would be a great way to see how to play around and test it for yourself. What are we going to use to navigate? For this tutorial, I decided to go with React Navigation. Even though we played with Expo Router previous week, I really loved how it works. I'm pretty sure that a lot of things will change for Expo Router in the next weeks or up until the next version of Expo. So when Expo Router will be available by default using Expo CLI, at that point, I think I'm going to use it more often in the builds. I just want this build to be more future-proof. And with React Navigation, that's going to be the case. are you going to complete this application this live? In this video, the plan is, at the moment, so far we have built 3 screens. We have built the product screens, the product details screens, and the shopping cart screen. The next step is to connect everything into the navigation system to be able to navigate from one screen to another. And then we're gonna go into implementing the logic, the global state management using Redux and Redux toolkit. Why I'm running out of breath. And yeah, like we're gonna implement the global state management, and for that, like we need a bit of time to make sure that everything is clear. So that's the plan for today. Okay. Yes, we're gonna use Redux toolkit. Yes, the Redux toolkit works with React Native as well. So guys, let's go ahead and follow the next steps. We still have, as I said, a lot of things to do and implement in our application. And the next step is to put all of the screens together into a navigation system. And for that, we're gonna use the React navigation library. You can check out the documentation for React navigation by going to React navigation. Here it is. And we have a super nice documentation there. So if you go to the docs, in the getting started, you will read more details about the React documentation. I'm gonna explain you step by step like what we are doing, but I'm not going to get into a lot of details because, as I said, my focus for this build is the global state management. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna install and set up React navigation. We're gonna use a native stack navigation, which looks like, which will help us move from one screen to another and will help us like go back and so on. I don't have any reference to see how it looks, but we're gonna see it exactly in our application. Go ahead and check the step-by-step guide that you can find in the description below. I think I'm repeating at this point too often, but there I have prepared for you the installation command for the navigation. So let's copy this command that installs the React Navigation Native and the other dependencies that we will need for the navigation, and let's paste it in our terminal. So I'm gonna press enter, and we have here React Navigation Native, which is the core of our navigation. Then we have a native stack, React Navigation Native stack, which gives us the possibility to implement native stacks, a navigator that works natively, the native screens, and the safe area context. These are the dependencies. Okay, now that we have done that, I'm gonna put all the code that relates to the navigation into a separate file inside our source. So let's go ahead and create this file called navigation.js. So in source, navigation.js, here we have it. So let's define the navigation component, which will return some JSX. We can go ahead and export default navigation. And the first thing that we need to do in order to make navigation work is to use a navigation container and put everything inside that navigation container. So let's go ahead and import navigation container from React navigation / native. That's how we import it. And we're gonna render this navigation container here, navigation container, as the root component in our navigation. Okay, for now, I'm going to import our screens. We will need them later here. So let's go ahead and import products screen. Let's go ahead and import product details screen. And lastly, the third screen, shopping cart screen. Now let's simply render the products screen inside the navigation container, which is not the way we will do it, but just to see something on the screen. Lastly, what we have to do is we have to go to our app.js, and instead of rendering the shopping cart, which at the moment we can delete all of these three components, as we will no longer render them from the application, but from the navigation. And in the app.js, we simply need to import the navigation from source navigation and render it here like this. Okay, we see the product screen because in the navigation, that's what we rendered, product screen. Perfect, but as I said, this is not the way we are rendering screens inside. The way we render routes in using React navigation is we need to use a specific navigator. And a navigator basically defines how the navigation between one screen to another is working, and also how they are presented on the screen. So for example, a bottom tab navigator, this is an individual navigator. A hamburger menu with a drawer, that's another navigator. In our case, we simply need a stack navigator. So we're going to import create native stack navigator from React navigation / native stack. Having this function that will help us create a stack navigator, let's go ahead and create this stack. Stack equal create stack navigator. Simply calling this function outside the component, like here at the top. What this function is giving us back is an object with two properties. Stack.navigator, I'm going to remove it from here. One of these property is stack.navigator, and this is the component that we need to wrap all our routes inside. Then to define a route in that navigator, we use stack.screen. And the stack.screen expects two required properties: the name of a screen, which in our case can be products, and the component that we need to render for that screen. In our case, products screen. I made a mistake somewhere here. No, I need to close the stack screen here. And just by doing that, we already see the products on the screen. And also we see this title. And this header at the top, this is coming from the stack screen. So it's automatically managed for us. Perfect. The same way as we define the route for our products, we need to define it 2 more times for our product details, which will render product details screen, and for our cart, which will render the shopping cart screen. Okay, now we have these routes, but still there is no way to go to that route. Well, let's go ahead and fix this problem. And what we want to happen is whenever we press on one of these products here, we want to open the product details screen. So let's go ahead in our source screen, product screen, because this is the product screen, and to navigate to a different screen when we press on this item, well, first of all, we need to transform this item from a view to a pressable, because we need to handle press events. Pressable, like this. So this is a pressable. And we will send the one press event. That is going to be a function. We can actually, I think, extract it to, no, let's keep it there. For now, if we do console warn pressed and the item dot name, if I press here, pressed this one, Air Force, like Cosmic, and so on. All right, so we are detecting press events. Now we need to navigate to the product details screen. To navigate, we need an access to the navigation object. There are a couple of ways to get this navigation object, but if you are working inside a screen, basically if you're working into a component that is rendered as a stack screen, here product screen, the easiest way to get it is through the props. We will receive it as navigation like this. So destructure the navigation from the props, and instead of console warn here, we can use the navigation object to navigate, and here we need to provide the screen name where we want to navigate. And the screen name was product details. To double check, go back to navigation, and here is the name that you're looking for. Now, if I'm going to press on one of these items, I'm redirected to the product details. And the cool thing is that I also have a back button automatically handled for me, so everything is working as expected. All of them will display the same data because we are still working with dummy data. So the expected behavior is simply to show the product details page. Another thing that I want to show you is the way we display a screen using Stack Navigator. There are a couple of ways we can adjust this. So for example, if we want the product details to come from the bottom, basically render as a model, we can do that by going to the navigation. And for the screen that we want to change this presentation mode, we can provide here additional options. For the options, let's provide the object, and we will provide the presentation object. And the presentation will be a model. So if you do model, now if you press on this, I think I need to refresh. Now if you press on this, no, come on, should work, presentation model. For the shopping, oh, because I put it to the shopping cart, I need to the product details. Yes, product details. Now it displays as a model coming from the bottom. On Android, it will look a bit different because it will look like a native Android model. So that's expected, but it's still a model. So we can dismiss it by just dragging it down. You can look at other ways you can display it. So you can do full screen model. Full screen model, so in this case it comes from the bottom, but it's a full screen, and in this case you'll not be able to swipe down to close it. You're gonna have to add the close button and go back there. So that's why I'm gonna stick to the presentation model for this one. I need to refresh to do that. I can go here and press R to reload, and now yes, it works better. And yeah, like as you can see through this model, you can scroll vertically, you can scroll horizontally, and also you can scroll from the top to close it, to close the model completely. Brian is saying, I prefer using the use navigation hook. Yes, I also prefer using the use navigation hook. And this is another way we can get access to the navigation object. And why I prefer doing that, let me show you how to do it. But it's actually, in this case, it doesn't really matter. It's only a personal preference. So if you don't want to take it from the props, if like this, I'm gonna delete it from the props. We can use a hook called use navigation, and that will give us the reference to the navigation, and everything will work as it was working before. This use navigation hook was imported from React Navigation /native, like this at the top. And why I prefer doing this over taking it from the navigation, from the props, is in the props, we're only gonna get this property inside the component that is rendered by the navigation. So only in the product screen, in the product detail screen, and in the shopping cart. Inside the components that are nested, for example, if we look into the cart list item, here in this cart list item, don't expect to see the navigation here, because this is a component that is not a screen, that is not rendered by the navigation. So if you need it here, you will have to use the use navigation hook. So that's why I always use the use navigation hook, because this way I'm pretty sure that I will get the navigation there. So it's, in my opinion, more reliable. Okay. Are you planning to show splash screen? I was not planning to do it for this today. No. What exactly are you interested in seeing for the splash screen? Like how to render a custom splash screen, or what exactly? So, how do we navigate to the cart? To navigate to our shopping cart, I think the best way to do is to render an icon in the header of our navigation. And that icon, we can do that by... So the next step is to implement a button that will redirect us to the shopping cart. I'm planning to do that as an icon in the header, in the title of our screen. How we can do that? We can do that also through the options that we send to the stack screen. So if I'm gonna send the button to the... on what screen do we need that shopping cart? I think we need it here in the product. So if I'm gonna do options here, is equal to an object, I can provide here header right, and this header right, we can specify a component that we want to render in the header right part. And the component that we want to render there is going to start with a pressable, because we will need to handle press events. Yes, we're gonna need to handle press events. Inside it, we're gonna render an icon, and the icon, I think it's the font awesome. So let me go ahead and import font awesome 5 from Expo. How is it? I always forget the import statement. Expo vector icons, like this. So the icon here in the pressable is going to be a font awesome 5 with the name. What's the name? Shopping cart. Shopping/cart with the size 18, and color probably gray. Okay, we see that icon there. Perfect. Besides the item, I think I also will render a text that will represent how many items are in that card. And the text, don't forget to import it from React Native at the top. We see the text below the cart item. Okay. To fix this, I'm simply gonna say the style of our pressable will contain a flex direction row to render these two components in the same row. Perfect. And let's also add some styles for our one here, like a margin left 5 and a font weight of 500. Something like this will look perfect. All right, good. Now we see this navigation here. What we wanted to do this for is whenever we press on this icon, we wanted to navigate to the cart screen. So we know that on pressable, we can add a onPress event, and here we can define a function that will do the navigation. And we also know that we need to use the navigation object and to do navigate to the screen with the name cart. But where do we get the navigation from? Because we are inside the options. Again, here we have a couple of options. If we take this out into a separate component, we would be able to use the use navigation hook. In this case, if we want to leave this here, what we can do is, instead of specifying the options as a hard-coded as an object, we can pay attention. We can move this to a function that returns an object. So again, instead of this object, we can move to a function that returns an object. In between these two closing brackets, let's put the round bracket. So it's a function, these are parameters, this is the arrow, and this is the return statement, and this is returning the object with options. What this allows us to do is, it allows us to receive the navigation object through the properties here. And now we have access to the navigation, and in the option in the header right, we can use this navigation object to navigate to the cart. And if I press on the cart, here we go, we are in the cart. Perfect. If you want this item, but no, I think that's good here. Okay. So I think, yeah, the last thing that I want to show you is now the background of all our pages became gray. What we wanted is to have them as a white background. So how can we adjust the style of all these screens at the same time without having to go and adjust the style of every single screen? Well, we can do that by providing the screen options to the stack navigator. And in the screen options, we can provide content style. And here we can provide styles that will be applied to the view that renders the content. For example, if we do background color red, everything will become red. So let's go ahead and do white here. And now our screens are back to having a white background like this. And with that being said, our navigation is complete for what we need at the moment. And we can go ahead and do git add. And commit everything. No. What? No. All right, so the last step in today's build is going to be the reason why I wanted to make this tutorial. And that's going to be managing the global state of this application using Redux. Okay, that's gonna be fun. I hope I'm gonna manage to explain you in a simple way, the way I explained everything to you. I've been avoiding going into the Redux just because it gives unnecessary complexity. But if you understand the concepts, which are quite a few of concepts, if you understand them individually, you're gonna be able to understand the whole thing, and everything is it will make sense. So my goal for today is to make sure that you finally understand React Redux and how to work with it, how to set it up, how to split everything, to split your global state in order to make it performant. So it's going to be challenging, but I'm ready for this. And let's take a very small break, like 2 minutes, to go through the live comments, and then we can get started with Redux. At the moment, the items are coming from dummy data. It's not coming from a backend in order to make this project easier. However, maybe, I cannot promise right now, but if you're watching this video later, check it out in the playlist or in the description below, because maybe we will do a next episode of this video where we will implement the backend, and these products and these items will come from a backend. So if you're interested, also let me know in the comments, and next week we can go into and implement the backend as well. Someone is asking about model with Android device. Let me go ahead and run this application on an Android, and for us to see how it looks there as well. So here I'm running the application on an Android. Let's see how the model will look. If I open like this, yeah, it's gonna look like a full screen model. It's different than, no, it's actually quite similar as the card. So yeah, that's how it is implemented on the Android. And let's try to see with a full screen model if that will change anything. But if I'm not mistaken, the full screen model will default to a model on Android and will only be different on iOS. Yeah, on Android it defaults to being a model. So yeah, that's how it works on Android. It looks cool, thank you. Yeah, I also really like this application. I love it from the simplicity of it, like it looks really nice. And yeah, I hope that this tutorial will help you have like a starting project for any e-commerce application that you might want to build. So if you have a project where you need like e-commerce features I think this is a great starting point. Moreover, we're going to get into the global state management, so this is going to be ready to scale and grow in size in terms of features and what the application can do. Okay, so are you ready, guys, for the Redux part? We are getting into it. So we are 2 hours in. Let's see how much it will take. Hopefully not that much. Okay, so first of all, let's discuss a bit why do we need a global state management at all? Because we can define state and we know how to work with state in a component. So for example, in our case, we have our shopping cart and we would have to define the state. The problem appears with sharing the same data between multiple components. For example, adding things to the shopping cart happens on our, let me bring my here. Yeah, adding products to a shopping cart happens on the product details page. Here we can press on add to cart and here is going to add there. Displaying products from the shopping cart happens on the cart page. Calculating the subtotal happens also here in another component. Then we have this rendering the number of items in the header of a navigation. So as you can see, the same data is required in multiple places of our application. So when this happens, one approach we can do to still be able to use like component state using the use state hook is to take the state and put it up in the tree into a component that is a parent of all the components that depend on this data. In our case, one of these top components can be our app.js. So our app.js can potentially define here the state for our shopping cart, and then the next problem appears, sending and accessing this data. One way to do is send it through the properties to the navigation, and then from the navigation receive it here, send it to the screen, and then from the screen send it to the components. And the problem that I'm explaining right now is called prop drilling, and which means is like we are just getting some properties, we are sending it down the tree. We are getting it, we are sending it down. So this becomes really annoying and error prone. Like if you forget to send this property from one component to another, you break the chain and that you're not gonna get the data where you need it. Moreover, you include a lot of unnecessary data dependencies that will impact the performance of your application. Okay, another way you can solve this problem, which a lot of people are doing nowadays, is using the context API. Well, that's gonna already be better because you're gonna solve a problem with prop drilling. With a context API, you don't need to send this property all over the place. You can encapsulate with the context provider all your application, and then where you need it, using a hook like use context, you can get this data. Okay, that's fine. The problem here with a use context is performance and unnecessary re-renders. So for small things, I always recommend sticking with use context. Everything is gonna work okay for small applications, and especially for data that is not changing very often. Use context is actually, that's why it was created, for data that is not changed often. For example, changing the theme, like from dark side to light mode. That data is not changing often. So it's perfectly fine to do it with the context because yeah, it's okay. I don't know why I'm running out of breath. Maybe that's because of my aligners that prevent me to breathe normally. Take a second, Vadim. So now we get into the data that is changing often in application. And one of these use cases that makes a lot of sense is this shopping cart use case. People are adding things to the shopping cart. People are adding it from one place in the application and viewing it from another place in the application. They are changing the quantity. Changing the quantity can affect our data like the total and subtotal. Like it's a lot of interconnected data that we need in multiple places of our application. Also, this data is changing very often, so that leads to us having to implement a global state management. Okay, so there are a lot of ways to implement that. There are a lot of libraries for managing global state. However, in this tutorial, we're going to use one of the oldest one and the most popular probably, which is called Redux. I've been avoiding using teaching Redux for a long time, but in the end, like it's still an important library that is used in a lot of projects in a lot of companies, and I think it's going to be very valuable for you to have some experience with Redux and to work with it. So in today's tutorial, we're going to implement Redux using the Redux toolkit, which makes a lot of things simpler and with less boilerplate. And we're going to implement all our state for the shopping cart and so on in this application. So, first of all, I'm going to shortly talk about how Redux works behind the scenes. I'm going to go through some of the concepts of Redux for us to make sure that we understand what we're talking about, because there are a couple of them, like store, actions, reducers, and so on. To explain that, I'm going to use this diagram here. Yeah, that's probably fine. So, in this diagram, we see how data flows in our application, using Redux as the global state management. On the bottom, we have a user interface, and this is our React Native code. And here on the right, we have our store. Starting with the store, what is this store? The store is the main source of truth. This is where our state lives. This is the global state that we can access from anywhere in the application. Now, this state is consumed by UI and is rendered on the screen. For example, a shopping cart items, they are the state in our store. We get them in the UI, we render them there. Now, on the UI side, we have here we have an example with like depositing and withdrawing money from an account. For example, we have two buttons, deposit and withdraw. When we press on this button, we trigger an event handler, basically the on-press event. When we do that, what we want to do is to basically send an event out there to the universe that, hey, an action happened. We are not changing at this moment anything. We are just informing the universe that something happened. And these events, these things that we're doing here, is called, we are dispatching actions. An action specifies what happened and also contains data that we'll need to know about the action. For example, pressing the deposit $10 might trigger the action deposit, and we'll have a payload of 10. Pressing on the withdraw will dispatch an action called withdraw, and the payload will be 10. Okay, these actions, as I said, they do not change anything. They're just sent out there as events. What they are doing is they will trigger one of the reducer. What are reducers? Reducers are simple functions that we define in our store that takes one action, they take the current state, and based on these two information, they mutate the state based on the action. So a reducer takes the action, it takes the state, and updates the state to reflect the new changes. It's basically mutating the state. Once the reducer completes, it updates the state. The reducer will update the state, and this will trigger the UI to update what it renders on the screen. So far, I hope you got a little bit of a concept of how Redux works. We have a store that contains our data. This data is displayed on the UI. When we do something on the UI, press a button, submit a form, or something like that, we are dispatching an action. This action triggers a function which is called reducer, and that reducer updates the state. So it's a lot of things going on here, but basically we are sending events and triggering functions at the end of the day. When the user does something, we send an event. Based on that event, we are executing some code that will update our data. And that's mostly everything you need to know at this moment. Vadim, why are you ignoring? I'm trying my best to deliver the best value here, and I'm gonna answer the live questions in a moment, guys. So I really want to make sure that you get all of these concepts, because we can easily get lost in all of these: store, dispatch, reducer, state, event, actions, and so on. Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and one last thing. In order to define and to work with Redux, we're going to use the Redux toolkit, which is a set of tools on top of Redux that helps us create and manage our store in an easier way. Basically, we have to write less code than we would do if we work directly with Redux. This is called the modern way of working with Redux. So for that, we're gonna go ahead, open a terminal, and let's start by installing two libraries. We're going to install Redux toolkit, like this, and the React Redux. This command is available in the step-by-step guide, so you can copy from there. And let's press enter to install them. When this is done, the first step is to define our store. For that, I'm going to create a new folder called store that will contain everything about the Redux store. So let's go ahead and define the index file that is the main, our Redux store. So to configure our store, we're going to import the function configure store from a Redux toolkit, where here it is. Now let's go ahead and export the constant store. that we will create by calling the configure store, and what it needs is an object with some reducers. At the moment, the reducers will be an empty object because later on we will add the reducers that we need here. Let's just define it as an empty store. So if we check this diagram, we know that the store is the combination of the state and the reducers. Reducers are our functions that update state. At the moment, we haven't defined any reducers. Let's just generate and configure the store. Now that we have it here, we need to inject, basically make it available to the rest of our application. To do that, let's go ahead in app.js and let's import the provider from, not from React, but from React Redux. So using this provider, I'm going to encapsulate everything into the provider. And I also have to send the store there. And the store, we can import store from source.store. Okay, doing that, now all our components inside this provider will have access to the data from our store, and also will be able to dispatch events to the store. Okay, the first step is clear, hopefully. All right, so let's go ahead and define some data in our store. So what we're gonna do is, instead of creating all of the state and reducers in the main store, we're gonna split it we're gonna split them logically. For example, the data about products, we're gonna keep it into a separate file. The data about the shopping cart, we're gonna keep in a separate file. If we would have users, that's gonna be a separate file. And all of these parts that we split our store into, they're called slices. This is another term we're gonna use. And let's go ahead and define the first slice. We're gonna start not from the shopping cart, but actually from the products, just to make it a bit easier for us. So let's define products slice.js. Okay, product slice.js. So what do we need here? Well, we will need to import create slice from Redux toolkit, like this. We need to define the initial state, which is going to be an object, and we're going to think like what state do we need there in a moment. And we need to export the slice, export const products slice. And this product slice is going to be created using create slice. And here it needs a couple of parameters. It needs the name to know what name to use for this slice. And we're going to use products. It needs the initial state, which we defined it here. And it needs the reducers, basically the functions that will update this state. And here, because initial state is the same, I'm going to simplify it like this. Perfect. So what do we need in our state? Our state of products will contain the actual products to display. So we can start with an empty array here, and that will be enough for us just to get started. Now, the next step is we need to connect our slice to the main store. So let's go ahead and store index, and let's go and import the product slice from product slice. Now, inside the reducer, I'm going to attach it to the products by doing product slice dot reducer. So I'm going to take all the reducers from our product slice, and I'm gonna attach it to the reducer products here. By doing that, now we're gonna have access in the store to these reducers, and also we're gonna have access to the to the products in the state. Okay, so let's go ahead and on the main page here on the product screen, let's go ahead and use this global state to render the products. For that, I'm gonna open screens, products screen, and instead of taking them from the dummy data here, what we want to do is we need to take them from the global state. Taking data from a global state is happening using selectors, because the way it works is the global state is a one massive object, and a selector is a function that shows how to get the specific data that we're looking for. So let's go ahead and import a use selector from React Redux, not const, but import. Use selector Redux, like this. And we're going to take our products using the use selector hook. And this use selector hook will receive all the state that we have in the global state management. And we need to specify how do we take the products from this state. So we're going to take it by state.products, because in the index here is the products. The name is products, so state.products. And the data that we are looking for is this array of products. So that's why we need another .products here. Okay, we don't have any errors, but the problem is that we do not see any items. Well, that's because if we look in the products slice, we initialize it with an empty array. Let's go ahead and initialize it with a dummy data. So I'm going to import products from data products, and I'm going to initialize it with this dummy data. And now we see the products again in our product screen, but this time they're not coming from being imported in this product screen, but they are coming from the global state management. Okay, maybe so far it's still overkill because we haven't changed anything, but we introduced a lot of topics. But in a moment, we're gonna implement a couple of logic. For example, whenever I press on one of these items, I want to display the details of a product in this product detail screen. What we can do is, whenever we press on this item on the products page, let's go ahead and set it as the selected product in our global state, and then from the next screen, just simply take that selected product. How do we do that? Well, for that we need firstly a variable in our store, and that variable is going to be selected product. Initially it's going to be null. Now we need some logic. We need a reducer, basically a function that will be triggered whenever we want to update the selected product. So the reducer, we're gonna call it set selected product. And if you remember from this diagram, a reducer we'll get the action and we'll get the current state. We'll get two things, action and state, and based on this, it will return the updated state. So, as I said, the reducer gets the state and the action. And here, based on the state and the action, we need to update the existing state. Okay. So for now, maybe we can console log the data so you can see exactly what information we have here. Console log action. So here is state and here is action. In order to trigger this reducer, again, I'm going to open the diagram. The thing that triggers reducers are the actions that are dispatched whenever something happens in the application. So using dispatch, we are dispatching an action, and that triggers a reducer. Well, with Redux, that would be a bit harder because we have to define all of the actions ourselves. But with Redux Toolkit, all our reducers automatically create actions for us that we can use easier. What do I mean by that is, let's open which screens? The product screen, because this is the screen that we are looking for. And here, when we press on this item, before navigating, I'm going to put here another set of curly brackets, because before navigating, I want to dispatch, or let's do update selected product. So how we're going to do that? Well, we need a couple of things for that. From React Redux, we're going to need the use dispatch function, and with that we're gonna get the dispatch like this. Now from the product slice, let's import this product slice in our product screen. So import product slice, because we need to dispatch an action, and that action we're going to take from product slice because it's automatically created for us for every reducer that we have here. So let's put them together here in the onPress. When the user presses on one item, we will dispatch the product slice dot actions dot set selected product. And here, what we need to do is to send the payload. And the payload that we want to send is the ID of the item. We're going to simply send the ID of the item, and the rest will happen in the state. Like, we're going to find the item by ID and so on. So, having this dispatch, let's open the console. And let's try to press on one of these items. If I press here, we see the whole state, like it's a lot of data there. And then if we scroll down a bit, we see the action with a payload 1. And this one is the ID of the item that we clicked on. Because if I click on another one, we see payload 4. And it has the type that is automatically handled for us. So, in the product slice, what do we have to do here in set selected product? We need to update the state, and we need to update specifically the selected product. And how we're gonna do? Well, basically we have const product ID is equal to action.payload. This is the ID of the product that we want to set as selected. Now we're gonna take the state dot products dot find, and we're gonna look through all the products, and specifically we're gonna search for the product where the ID is equal to the product ID that we want to set as selected, just like that. So we took the information about the action that we want to happen, and that information is the product ID, and we have updated the state. So at the moment nothing will happen, but let's go ahead and use this data, the selected product, in our details page to render the information about the item that is currently selected. So in the screens, product details screen, to use the data, if you remember, we need the selector. So let's import use selector from React Redux, and we also need the that's everything that we need. Now instead of taking the product here from the products at position 0, we're gonna take it using the use selector, and from the state we're gonna take it from state.products dot selected product. Now if I press here, it's this item, and if I press here, it's another item with other images, and it will work the same for all the rest of the items. So let's think what happens here. Starting from the product screen, this is the screen with all of these items. When we press on one of these items, I'm going to comment out the navigation.navigate just to stay on the same screen. So when I press on this item here, we are dispatching an action, and we are sending the ID of the item that we currently pressed. Now this action, so we are handling the event, the press event here, and we're dispatching an action to the store. Okay, now inside our store product slice, this action will trigger a reducer, and the reducer is the function that updates the state. The reducer will get the existing state and the action that triggered it. In the action, we can get the data that we sent from the payload. And basically what we are doing is we are updating the selected product by looking through all the products and looking specifically for that ID. Now, this updates the selected product in state, and by the time we navigate and we reach the product details that is consuming this selected product by selecting it from the state, by that time this product is updated and we see exactly the thing that we need there. So two different screens, one is updating the selected product, one is consuming it, and everything works seamlessly. Okay, so for now, I'm going to go ahead and commit this, git commit. And in the next step, we're going to move to the shopping cart. But before that, I want to look through the comments. And if you have some specific question about Redux and how it works, let me know and we can cover some of these topics once again if something was not clear enough. So set up Redux and implement products slice. Git add, git status. Perfect. Before that, I need a short break, 1 minute, and I'm going to be back. So stay tuned, write your comments now, and then when I'm back, we're going to go through them. All right, so I am back, guys. Let me check if my microphone is still working. Yes. All right, guys, so I am back. It's really helpful with Redux, how to deal with API and Redux. With the API, we will not get into that today. Maybe next time, yes. I'm stuck at the navigator. As soon as I add a stack, nothing works anymore, trying to figure it out. Does it show you any errors, or it simply doesn't render anything? Because if it doesn't render anything, I suspect the problem is related with the some styles. So yeah, make sure that you updated the styles. And what else you can do? Oliver, thank you very much. Oliver, you're so nice. Okay, so we saw a pretty easy example with managing our products in the state. Yeah, just empty screen. In that case, make sure in app.js, like have a look here at my structure for the container style. Actually, I don't think I need this container anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete it. And yeah, it works. Yeah, double check with the styles, or try to reload the application. Close it and open it again. Like from the DevTools, do Control-C to stop the server, start it again, and run it again. Maybe, yeah, like the libraries haven't linked correctly. Okay, but we have to move on with the next steps. And our next steps, as I said, we are finished with the product slice that are rendering the product and the selected product here on the page. Perfect, looks so beautiful. Which one should I buy? Okay, don't get distracted by them. The next step is going to be a more interesting example, and this one is going to involve our cart. So what I want to do is we have to manage the whole cart globally with Redux. And yeah, like the feature that it will include, basically whenever we press on this add to cart button, we will want to update the cart state. Whenever we go here, we need to look and see the most up-to-date data for our cart. I also want to be able to change them quantities, and all of these items should automatically calculate the subtotal, delivery total, and so on. So yeah, we're gonna learn also how to work with a little bit more advanced selectors. Yeah, let's get started with that. So in the store, let's go ahead and define a new slice. And as I said, slices are logical groups of data in our application, and their goal is to keep everything structured, not to put everything into the same file. So let's go ahead and create our cart slice.js. And here, if you remember from the previous step, we need the create slice from Redux toolkit. We need the initial state, and our initial state will contain the items that we have in our cart. And I also want to keep track of some variables here. And these variables, at the moment, they will be hard-coded, but in a real application, they might change. So that's why we will put it in the state. And these variables are the delivery fee, basically what should be the delivery fee. At the moment, as I said, I'm gonna hard code it to 15. And a lot of applications also have some logic like free delivery for orders more than $200. So let's add this free delivery from. We're gonna need it a bit later, but let's make sure that we have it in our initial state. Okay, so lastly, let's go ahead and export the cart slice by creating it here. So the name is going to be cart. We're gonna send the initial state, and then we have reducers. So what reducers will we have? First of all, the reducers, I'm gonna recap, are the functions that change the state. So what functions will we need for our cart? Well, one of them will be add cart item. And this will help us, add a new item to the cart. So we have state, we have action, and this function will do something. Also, from this page, we will be able to change the quantity. So that's another reducer, change quantity. And that again will get the state and action and will do something. Okay, so let's go ahead and start implementing the logic for the add cart item. So what will happen there? Well, we will receive the product through the payload of the action. So let's take it from there. New product equal action payload dot, and how we're gonna send it, and probably as product, as an object called product. Now what we want to do is simply push this new product to state item, and it should be items dot push. And we're not just simply gonna push the product, because if we look in our dummy data for the cart, our cart item actually contains the data about the product, and it contains quantity and maybe even size. So let's go ahead and we're gonna push an object where product is our new product and quantity is 1. So basically when we press on one of these buttons, add to cart, we're simply going to add this product with quantity 1. There is no way to select like how many items you want, like we're gonna keep it simple. From here, you simply, when you add, it's going to add as 1. Later we will be able to change this quantity, but initially it's 1. Okay, so now that we have this reducer add cart item, let's trigger it. And to trigger the reducer, we need to dispatch an action. So many terms. It would be easier to say like we call a reducer. But yeah, like behind the scenes, like it's a bit more technical. Like it actually like fires an action, and that action gets to a lot of reducers, and behind the scenes, it only triggers the ones that are there to handle the specific action, and it works based on a type. But yeah, like with Redux Toolkit, like a lot of these are much easier, and you actually don't need to know like how that happens there. It will definitely help you understand how it works behind the scenes, not gonna lie. But yeah, what we have to do is we need to, whenever we press on this button add to cart, we want to add this item to the cart by sending the add to cart item action that will trigger the reducer. Yes. So in the product details screen, we're gonna need from React Redux the dispatch function, or use dispatch. We're gonna need and we're gonna need to get this dispatch function using the use dispatch. And we're going to need the shopping or the cart slice from store cart slice. I forgot to call this use this dispatch, so make sure to call it like this. And now let's go ahead and in this function add to cart, instead of console logging this thing here, we're gonna dispatch the action that we are gonna get from the cart slice dot actions dot add to cart item. And here, if you remember, we are sending it as a product in the payload. So I'm gonna put an object and I'm gonna send here product is going to be equal to this product. And basically, because the key and the value is the same name, I'm going to simplify it to this. So by doing this, we should, we are sending the action to add to a cart, and our slice will go ahead and trigger this reducer and will execute this code to push items in the state. The last thing to see something on the UI on the screen is to go into the shopping cart, and instead of taking this cart data from our dummy data here, what we want to do is we want to get the data const cart items equal use selector. This use selector, we need to import selector from React Redux. Why doesn't give me suggestions? And the selector will take the state and will access the state dot. In this case, it's not product. In this case, it's cart. But yeah, I forgot to do something, and we're gonna do it in a moment. So state.cart.items. So if we do it like this, I forgot to do something, so let's see what's gonna happen. If I'm gonna go to the shopping cart, nothing happens because I have to reload. And I have to send these cart items to the flat list. And if I go there, we see that it's undefined, like state.cart is not defined. Why is that happening? Because we define the slice here, but we forgot to connect it to the main store. So in the store index.js, the same way as we connected the product slice, we need to connect the cart slice. So cart slice dot reducer. Now if I'm gonna go to the cart, we don't see any items, but if I'm gonna go to some of these items, for example, add to cart, and now I'm gonna check the cart, now we see them. And that's gonna work for our items as well. If I do it like this, come back, we see it here. If I'm gonna do on the same item 2 times, it's gonna add it twice in the cart. All right, okay. So let's improve a little bit the way our add to cart item function works and avoid the situation where we add twice the same item. Because when that happens, what we actually want to do is we want to simply increase the quantity of the item that is already in state. And so what we're gonna do here is before pushing it there, let's first check if state.items. No, let's actually find that item first. So const product equal. Let's try to search if we already have it in state items. So we're gonna use a find function to find the item with where the ID matches the one from the new product.id. But it's not item.id, it's item.product.id. Let's call it actually item like this. So now we are searching, and if our items contain one cart item with a same product ID, then it's gonna be returned here in the product. Otherwise, this is going to be null. So what we can do is we can check if product is defined, then we simply want to do product dot. But it's actually not product, and it's bad if it's gonna work, but the actual name should be cart item. So if cart item, then cart item dot quantity, I'm going to increase it +1. And otherwise, if we haven't found the cart item in the state, we will push it with quantity 1. So if it's there, we increase the quantity. If it's not there, we simply put it with 1. Let's go ahead and check. I'm gonna add this one once. Should be there, yes. And I'm gonna add this one twice. And if I go there, I see it with quantity 2. Perfect, exactly what we wanted. And if I add another one, it's still gonna work. It's gonna add it as the third one. And if I go back to this one and add it one more time, it should be quantity 3 there. Quantity 3. Perfect. Okay. So, all right. Let's go ahead and implement the change quantity then function. So the change quantity, how that's gonna happen? Basically in the action, change quantity. We will also receive the, let's actually fire the event first and then see how we can do the logic. So the event is going to happen from one of our cart items when we press on the plus or minus. So that component is inside source components cart list items. Here we have a function for increase quantity and here for decrease quantity. So what we need is we need the dispatch function. For that we need use dispatch hook from React Redux. And we need the slice to get the action. So cart slice from store cart slice. Okay, first let's get the dispatch function. Dispatch, use dispatch, perfect. And inside the increase quantity, should we do it with two separate functions? Yeah, I think it will make more sense. Or like we can either have two separate reducers, one for increasing quantity, one for decreasing quantity, or we can have one reducer that will receive an extra property amount that will be either +1 or -1. So this one really depends on how you want to design it. I think I'm gonna go with a step with having like the amount. Does it make sense? Or in order to keep more logic in the store, probably we can dispatch two different functions. One is increase, where is it? Cart slice. I have here change quantity. Yeah, let's keep it with one reducer change quantity. And in our components cart list item, we're going to dispatch in the increase quantity the cart slice dot actions dot change quantity. And for the payload, we want to change the quantity for the product ID cart item dot product dot ID, and the amount that we want to change it with is going to be 1. And we're gonna do the same dispatch for the decrease quantity, but in this case the amount is going to be -1. Now in our reducer, we're going to receive a payload with product ID and the amount. So let's go into the cart slice here. And first of all, let's get the product ID and amount from our action.payload. Now we need to get the product or the cart item by looking through the state.items and finding an item where the item.product.id is equal to the product ID. So where this is equal, we're gonna get the cart item. And here we can check if this was found, if cart item is defined, then we want to change the quantity with the amount. So we're gonna add the amount, and that should be it. So if I go here, if I do plus, no, in cart list item, I think I messed up how I call it. So for the minus, I'm calling increase, where I should call decrease quantity, and here I need to have increase. So let's do plus. If I press on the plus, I change the quantity. If I press on the minus, I again change the quantity. One more step that we have to do is when the quantity goes below 0 or is equal to 0, we need to remove this item from the cart. So after this is happening, we need to say if cart item dot quantity is less or equal than 0, then we need to filter out this item from our items, from the state. So actually it should be state items is equal to state items dot filter, where item is different than cart item. That's supposed to work. Let's add more items here in the cart, and then we're gonna test it out. So if I go now to the cart, and for this retro high, if I change the quantity up to 0, it disappears and the rest of the items are still here. Same for this one and same for this one. Perfect. I'm going to disable checking for this file, which added this here at the top, just not to have red warnings because I'm not using TypeScript at the moment. Thank you very much, Shubham. Okay, so we implemented 2 reducers, adding things to cart, change of quantity, which also handles removing things from the cart. Yeah, now I want to go into a little bit more advanced selectors, and selectors allows us to derive data based on the state. So the idea is that we need to store in the state minimum amount of data and only the data that is unique. And rest of the things that we can derive from that data, we should do that through selectors. So what do I mean by this? For example, on the home page, or no, a better example would be the totals. So one way you would implement subtotal, deliver, and total is adding them here in the state as the subtotal total, and so on, and always updating them whenever you add things or whenever you change quantity. But that's not the way it works, because this subtotal and total, these are derived data that can be calculated based on the items that we already have in the state. So for that, we are going to define selectors that will calculate these values out of items that we have on the state, in the state. I'm going to start with an easy one. And the easy one is displaying the number of items in the cart in the header here. So for that, in the cart slice, I just need to define a selector that gives us the length of this array items. So let's go ahead and export it from here. Export const select number of items. This selector will get the state, and we will do state.cart .items .length. So knowing the state, we're gonna get the length of items, and this is going to be our custom selector. Well, we saw that kind of selectors that we were doing inline, but this is a better way because the logic of how we want to get this data is within our global state, not within our components that are responsible for simply rendering data. So let's go ahead and use this selector inside our navigation. Inside our navigation here, we will import the use selector from React Redux, and we're going to import select number of items from store cart slice. And now putting them together, we can get number of items equal use selector, and then select number of items. Now this number of items, we can render them instead of the text one here. So let's put the curly brackets here, and inside it number of items. At the moment it's 0, but if I do add to cart, that's going to change to 1. And if I go to another item, that's going to change to 2, and so on. So now, yeah, we are using a custom selector to get the number of items. That was quite easy. The next step is going to be to calculate in our cart, to calculate the subtotal. How do we do that? So let's export a new custom selector. Select subtotal. This again will get the state, and we need to calculate the subtotal basically. Here I'm going to use a bit of JavaScript magic, and specifically the reduce function. The way reduce function works is having an array of items, we need one value out of them. And that value is that subtotal. So the array of our items is state.cart.items, basically all the items in our cart. And we want to reduce to one number. That number that we want to reduce to is the subtotal. So how does the reduce work? Well, it needs a function which is called the reducer, and here it will return something and a starting value. The starting value is going to be 0 because we want to count starting from 0, the subtotal. The reducer will get the value that we are accumulating, moving from one item to another, and I'm going to call it sum because we are calculating the sum, the summation of our prices. And the second parameter is the current item. So it's going to be cart item. So what do we want to return? We want to return the summation plus the cart item dot price dot product, because the price is inside our product, dot price. And if I do that, yeah, that's not everything, because we take the price and we have to multiply by the quantity. So multiply by cart item dot quantity. Okay, so that's going to calculate the subtotal by adding all the prices of items, where we multiply the price with the quantity. Simple math, right? Now let's go ahead and use this select subtotal inside our screens shopping cart here, right? So cart items, no, we don't need it here. We need it in the shopping cart totals. At the moment, this one is using the round brackets, and that means that it automatically returns this component. So we need to switch to a normal return statement. Close it here, the component, return. And if we have this return statement, now this is a normal function body where we can use the subtotal. We can use a hook called use selector, and the selector that we want to use is called select subtotal. Let's try to render this instead of this value here, subtotal. And if I'm gonna do add to cart here, that's gonna add to cart. And if I'm gonna increase the subtotal, we see that if I'm gonna increase the quantity, we see the subtotal automatically changes at the same time. And that's gonna be the same if I add another item there. So if I increase the state, it increases the subtotal there. The same thing here, and it calculates them by displaying the sum of both items. And the thing is that, yeah, like this 320 is not correct. In the cart item, it's dummy data. So probably I need to do in cart list item, where we have 320 here. And I think we have to display it as cart item dot product dot price multiply by cart item dot quantity. Now it's 160, and it also updates it like this. Yes, it works as expected. Okay, so now we saw how with a custom selector we can calculate a little bit, have more logic inside it, and calculate for example summations or filtering stuff and so on. Okay, perfect. Our next custom selector is the delivery here. The logic with the delivery is that we want to display the delivery fee from the initial state, or if the subtotal is more than this free delivery form, we will make the delivery free. So to calculate the delivery fee, basically we need access to the state to get this delivery fee and free delivery form. And also we need access to basically the result of this selector, select subtotal. Yes, we could calculate this one more time, but that's gonna be redundant as we already do it here in this selector. So again, what we need to calculate the delivery fee is information from state and also information that is returned from our selector here. How can we combine that? Well, we're gonna use the create selector function from Redux toolkit. And this create selector function will allow us to create a selector that depends on our selectors. And behind the scenes, it also adds some performance optimization. So select delivery price. We're gonna use this create selector. And yeah, like the way it works, like I'm gonna start simply. Like for example, if I add the first parameter another selector, in this case subtotal, and then a function that will receive this value subtotal, and if I simply take subtotal, multiply by 2, let's use this selector, display it on the screen, and see what we have there. So in the shopping cart, const delivery fee equal use selector, select delivery price. And let's display it on the screen here. So if I add an item there and go back here, in the car slice for the delivery price, what we did is basically we said that the delivery price is double our subtotal. And that's actually what we see on the screen. If subtotal is 160, the delivery is 320. And if I increase it to 320, that automatically moves to 640. So in this way, using the create selector function, we define what are the dependencies, basically what selectors do we depend on. Then based on these selectors, we receive the value in our custom function, and we are doing something with it. Basically, we are changing this value. Okay. So we saw how we can add selectors here. Another thing is that we need access to the whole state, right? To the whole state for the delivery fee and free delivery form. Well, I'm going to define another small selector, and I'm not even going to export it probably, because I need it just to have access to it in this combined one. So let's define a selector that will get us the cart details, basically everything in the cart. So cart selector equals state, and we're going to get the state.cart. Now let's go ahead and add this cart selector as, yeah, like the first parameter in this dependency, like yeah, in this dependency, like it's not an array, like all the items in the beginning of this function, they are dependencies that will be sent to as a parameter to this update function. So cart here is like this. So we receive cart and subtotal because cart is first one, subtotal is the second one. And what we want to do is we said that we will have a logic. So if cart dot if select, oh my god, if the subtotal of our order is more than the cart dot free delivery form. So basically, if we are ordering, for example, for a lot of items, in that case, the delivery will be 0. If our subtotal is more than the threshold from where the delivery is free, we will return 0. Otherwise, we are going to return cart dot delivery fee. So we see that free delivery is from $200 and the delivery fee is 15 if the subtotal is less than that. Let's go ahead and see if that's actually working. So if I add one item to the cart and go to the cart here, I see delivery is 15. But if I order more items that are more than $200, delivery is automatically 0. And I can go back to 15 and to 0. And this automatically, yeah, like works based on custom selectors. All right. So lastly, as a task for you to see if you understood how these selectors are working, try to define a custom selector for the total. And the way it will work, it will basically take the value for the subtotal, it will take the value for the delivery, and it will simply add them together. Pause the video, try to do it yourself, and in 3, 2, 1, we're gonna do it together. All right, let's see if you managed to do it correctly. So we're gonna export a new custom selector for select total. We're gonna use a create selector because we depend on 2 other values. And that value, the first value is the subtotal. So I'm gonna use this select subtotal. And the second one is the select delivery price. Lastly, we need to define the function that will be executed, like the function that will generate the value. So this function will receive 2 values, one for the subtotal and one for the delivery price. So first one is subtotal, second one is delivery price, or just delivery. And what we have to return, a simple summation of subtotal plus delivery. Now if I add some, last step is to go to the shopping cart and get this value. So total is equal, use selector, select total, and let's go ahead and display it on the screen here. Total. Okay, now if I go here, we see that, the total is 160 plus 15, which is 175. If I increase it, that's 320 plus 0, that's 320. So yeah, at the end of the day, like the total is quite, like the selector for the total is quite simple because we can reuse some of the values that we already calculated. Okay, so, that was intense. Let me think if I managed to, to explain everything that I wanted here with selectors. Now, it will automatically get calculated, like both subtotal, total, delivery, and so on. Awesome. So, I'm gonna go ahead and do git add, git commit, and this was our cart slice, Redux slice. And with that being said, that's everything that I have prepared for you today. It was a quite intense build, so we can have a look at what we managed to do so far. That was a lot. Alright guys, so in this tutorial we learned how to build a full end-to-end React Native application based on the Nike's e-commerce application. So we started simple by displaying the list of products on the home page, and here we can navigate through them, we can scroll through them. Then we implemented the next page for the product details. Here the UI got a little bit more interested. We saw how to render image sliders, image carousels, a lot of information here with text. And lastly, we went ahead and implemented the cart component. So I'm gonna add a couple of things to the cart. In here we can see the cart in action. It displays a list of items. It displays as an input for the quantity, so we can play, we can change the quantity, and so on. After that, we have managed to put everything together into a navigation system. So as you can see, everything works perfectly fine. We can navigate from one page to another. We saw how to work with models and how to navigate from one page to another. Lastly, the most important part of this build was implementing a global state management using Redux and Redux Toolkit. So for that, all the data for this page, for example, is coming from the Redux. We are selecting, we are updating everything there. And where these things comes in handy is specifically for the card. Because the data for the card is managed and updated from different places in the application. For example, from the product details page, we can press on this button to add the product to the cart. At the top of our, in the header of this title, we see the number of items that we currently have in the cart. If we press on it, we see them here, so the data is consumed here. We can easily update the quantities, and that will trigger and will update and will recalculate all of the subtotals, the delivery, and the total. So yeah, it was a fun build. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what other features you'd like me to build in this, and if we should continue this at all. There is some other interesting parts that we can implement for this e-commerce application to have it maybe as a full stack application with an actual backend. Maybe we can implement some payments. I don't know. Let me know, give me some ideas, and maybe next week we're gonna do it. For now, let's go through some comments to see what are you guys thinking about this. If you have any ideas, if you have any questions. Did you enjoy the Redux part? So yeah, guys, I'm going live every week on Friday at the same time, 3 p.m. GMT. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell not to miss any project-based tutorials that we are doing. And here we have a fun little drink. Cheers, guys, cheers. Super happy. It was a really productive week, and I'm happy when I'm ending it on Friday with a successful build and hopefully something valuable for you as well. From so much talking, my my lip is already bleeding. I can feel it. Add animations. Yeah, that's another thing that maybe will be something interesting, like with animations. I'm gonna upload this to GitHub, and I'm gonna put the link in the description as soon as we finish this live stream. So guys, if there is no other questions, we can take this conversation to Discord. You can also find the link in the description. And I'm gonna see you next week with another build or with a continuation of this one. Probably the second part. The second part is coming because I really love the application. It's something exciting. So I hope you enjoyed. See you guys later. Bye bye.